Hi folks, Aloo Chops are a delicious, spicy, vegetarian and vegan snack food from India, and I have adapted this recipe from a recipe by my dear friend Ritu from Ritika's kitchen, and there'll be a link to that up in the cards up here somewhere, and also in the description below this video. You're going to love this one. It's quite easy to make. I didn't make mine quite as pretty as Ritu did, but they turned out okay, I think you'll agree, and they were absolutely delicious. Yet again, I've got Bradley Bennett to thank for the production of this video. Thanks, my dear friend. Thanks for your generosity and kindness. Okay, ingredients. In order to make aloo chop, we need aloo, so I've got about 500 grams of plain mashed potatoes. There are no other ingredients in there apart from a little bit of salt and potatoes. I've got some turmeric. I've got some gram flour. Gram flour's important in this recipe, and if you're a vegan or a vegetarian, you're probably using it quite regularly. Gram flour is a flour made from chickpeas, and it is very high in protein and quite high in starch, and it makes excellent batter, particularly for vegetarians and vegans, because it already has the protein element within it, so you don't need to add eggs when you make batters out of gram flour. I've got some edible mustard oil. Emphasis on the word edible because there is mustard oil available from Indian Pakistani stores that is purely for Vedic massage, and it's not for internal use. So when you do buy edible oil, if you even order it from an online source, you need to make sure that it's edible mustard oil. You can substitute this reasonably well by using corn oil, but it won't be exactly the same. So if you can find it, get some edible mustard oil. I've got some salt. I've got medium-sized onion, finely chopped. A couple of green chilies. These are fairly hot ones, but you can either omit them altogether or just use a milder green chili like a jalapeno or something. I've got 2 teaspoons of red chili powder. I've got about a generous teaspoon of kalonji. Now, let me show you these. Kalonji are known as nigella seeds. The other thing about kalonji is that they're a kind of onion seed, and they're exceptionally good in culinary use, not only for the flavour they impart, but they do have anti-parasitic qualities, so they're pretty good for the gut. I've got a generous teaspoon of ginger. More about that later. I'll show you what I do to get it like that. And I've got some curry powder and some baking powder. So that's the ingredients. First of all, I think we need to think about making the batter. Okay, in order to make the batter, we need some gram flour. So I'm going to put in about 4 heaped dessert spoons of that, about a cup. I'm going to put in half of my red chili powder. You can use paprika powder if you want a milder version of this. So red paprika powder if you want a mild version. I want to put in about a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder in there. That'll help it crisp up. And about 1/2 to 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, but just salt it to taste. I mean, if you don't like too much salt, you can reduce that amount. And into that also goes half of my kalonji. They go straight into it. Now the next thing to do is to mix this up into a batter, and we do that by adding water. A rule of thumb is to use about 3/4 the volume of water as you use of flour. But really I just want to mix it in until I get to a certain consistency. I'll start off with a spoon and then move to my whisk. So you add it gradually. Make sure you check out Ritika's channel and particularly see her version of this, which is the one I'm emulating here. What we're aiming for, let me go and get my whisk. What we're aiming for here is a batter that about the consistency of double cream, heavy cream, something like that. So add the water gradually until you get there. It's a little too thick still. Maybe another splash about the same as the last one. Adding it gradually, you get there just right. Still a little too thick. Like I said, get it to about the consistency of double cream. We want this to cling to the patties of potato. Right, now we've got the batter made, we can set that aside. And setting that aside for 20 minutes will improve the batter itself. So I'll just set that aside, and then we can get on with frying up the potato. Okay, one thing I neglected to mention on the batter was I want a teaspoon, or half a teaspoon, sorry, of turmeric powder. So about that much goes in there. I could go on about turmeric powder all day because it's an amazing ingredient, and we should all include about a teaspoon, half a teaspoon at least, of turmeric in our diet every day. It is so good for you. This frying down process is very important. In some cultures they call it buna or bunjay. It's very important because it reduces the onion down, extracts a lot of the flavour into the oil, and it also starts to caramelise the sugars in the onions. Now at the stage where your onions are starting to turn translucent, we can now add the ginger and the chillies. I'll get all that in there. Any of you who've travelled in the Indian subcontinent or in the large Indian areas of some of the big cities in the West will know how wonderful Indian snack food it is. There's a large Indian restaurant culture in Britain, but there isn't really a great culture in Britain of Indian snack foods, which is a great shame really, because Indian snack foods are awesome. I mean, they're beyond awesome to me. I think they're amazing. They're everything that is good about food, in my opinion. They are spicy, they're delicious, and if you're vegetarian or vegan, the majority of Indian snack foods by far are vegetarian or vegan. Okay, at this stage, where they're starting to caramelise a little bit, I'm going to add in some curry powder. Now in Ritika's recipe she puts these in as separate spices, but curry powder encompasses all those spices. So it's got coriander, cumin, and it's got turmeric in it as well, which is quite handy. So I'm going to put in 2 teaspoons of that for now. Let's have a look, and we'll stir that in and see what we got. I'm going to put in the rest of my chili powder, or if you're using paprika powder, use that. You don't have to put in things like green chilies. You can just make this completely mild by using paprika powder. And then I'm going to stir that down and let that go for a couple of more minutes, 2 or 3 more minutes, to cook the rawness out of the spices. Okay, that's cooked down nicely now. I've reduced the heat now to a low setting, and now I'm going to add in all my potatoes and fry that for a couple of minutes to mix all those ingredients together. At this stage I'm going to give it a little taste. Right, and this is where you need to adjust for salt. So that needs a fair bit of salt in it. You add as much salt as you like, make sure you taste as you go. That's really nice. It's quite spicy, but it's tolerably spicy if you're not into too heavy spices. If you omit the green chilies and use paprika powder, you'll get a nice mild version of the same, but all the other great flavours will come through. I'm happy with the way that's spiced now and the way that it tastes. It's quite superb. So I'm going to put that aside now for about half an hour or so, let it cool off. Don't forget, if you like what you see, please like, subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to share it with your friends. Thanks, it all helps enormously during these tough times, so thank you in advance. So while it's cooling off, I've got this slack handful of fresh coriander. You can use parsley if you wish, but coriander is more authentic. I will chop that up now. It doesn't have to be too fine, and I will drop that straight into my potato mix, give it another mix, and that adds a delicious note of floral freshness. So I'll leave that aside and get back to you when it's time to fry. Okay, making them up, make sure your hand is oiled. Pick up a golf ball size piece in your hand, turn it into a ball, and then flatten it with your thumb, and then with the other hand batter it and drop it into the batter, into the hot oil. Continue doing that, but don't overfill your frying pan, otherwise it'll cool down the oil too much. As soon as they're cooked on both sides, drain them off. As you drain them off, they will continue to become more and more crispy on the outside. Here's a top tip. What I do is I freeze chopped ginger in ice cubes like this, and then I pop them out and pop them into a bag so I can reuse the ice tray. Pop those into a freezer bag, and then I've got quick processed fresh ginger whenever I need it. And I do that with several other different types of herbs. The herbs I have to buy in, for instance, like coriander, what I do is I use what I need, then I chop down the remainder of it, freeze it in an ice tray, and then just pop it into a bag, a freezer bag when it's ready, and keep that in my freezer for when I need it. Top tip. Okay, there they are served up. What I've done is I've garnished them with a bit of finely chopped onion and some coriander, some fresh coriander, and in this case I'm using ketchup. Another great dip would be Maggi tamarind sauce, a picture of which you see now on your screen. You can obtain that at most Indian or Pakistani grocers, and you can order it online. Another great source for it would be my friend Reshmi's from Taste of Trini. Her tamarind sauce, which is excellent. I'll leave you a link to that up in the cards and in the description below this video.